Hello, it's me again. This week I was really in the mood to make a video, so I sat down at my computer, hot beverage in hand, and got ready to start tippity-tapping a new script. Unfortunately, the one thing that I forgot to bring with me was an idea. So there was none tippity-tapping. I finished the hot beverage. There was still no idea. There was still none tippity-tapping. But eventually, I had a brainwave. The thought occurred to me, what if I didn't have to think of the idea? What if I could get others to do that for me? So I reached out to a few friends and family with a request that they give me one word. It could be a noun, it could be a verb. And I would take that word and I would weave it together masterfully with words from other people to create the greatest collaborative narrative the world has ever seen. I think I just said I'd mush it together into a story. Basically, I've crowdsourced for an idea for this video. And because we're all wondering, these are the words that I've been given. Transcendental. Thanks, Mum. I like a challenge. For some reason, I seem to default to poetry, so we're taking all of these and heading straight into Rhyme Town. A long time ago, in a faraway land, lived a little black cat and a jolly snowman. Together they lived in a humble abode, and they danced and they sang whenever it snowed. One day, they awoke to a startling sight, for something quite strange had happened during the night. For when they looked out, instead of flowers and trees, their garden seemed different. It had all turned to cheese. Their first reaction was one of surprise. They couldn't believe it, kept rubbing their eyes. I suppose it must be alarming to see a pond made of cheddar, a hedgerow of brie. But after a moment in which they took stock, they realised it was annoyance rather than shock. See, they'd recently had a landscaper in. It'd been quite the investment to do the whole thing. So to find that their garden was entirely dairy wasn't ideal. It was budgetarily scary. They came up with a plan to make it all right, and they travelled all day and into the night. At last they arrived, as far north as can be, at a cosy old cabin not far from the sea. Weary and cold at their long journey's end, they knocked on the door of an old witchy friend. With a hug and a kiss, she invited them in and offered them goulash fresh from the tin. For though she cooked up a powerful potion, when it came to food, she hadn't the slightest notion. The cat and the snowman told of their plight. By the end of their story, the witch turned quite white. With a worried expression, in a voice quite sincere, and her head in her hands, the witch said, "Oh dear, I think that I might be the one who's to blame for your cheesy backyard, but let me explain. There's a competition to see who's best amongst witches and wizards, a magical test. This year the task was a food-based one, and though I was nervous, it sounded quite fun. We had to make magical breakfast or lunch, or afternoon tea, or maybe some brunch. I chose a meal I thought I could do, a wonderfully tasty and hearty fish stew. I gathered ingredients I needed to use, the magical herbs and transcendental stock cubes. And because it would take a while to be stewed, I went back to my knitting. I'm making a snood, but the mixture boiled and started to bubble, turned alarmingly blue. I knew I was in trouble. I started to panic. I couldn't think straight, didn't know how to fix it, what action to take. At last I realised it all became clear. I'd have to throw it away and compete next year. The disposal of magic, as you may or not know, is a delicate business, as this story will show. For I think as I cast a spell to get rid, my mind must have wandered and become distracted. So it's not thanks to villains your garden's a mess, but your sorry witch friend who has to confess. To Exeter, to your humble abode, let's go now, and I'll see if I can fix my mess somehow. So the three friends together hopped on a broom. Through the starry night sky did they silently zoom. Arriving back home, our protagonists found a strange looking crowd had gathered around. There was a juggling mouse, a duck humongously big, and a frog with a crown who was dancing a jig. Alarmed and confused were the snowman and cat, but their old witchy friend doffed her old witchy hat. For the strange-looking crowd was not a strange crowd, it's true, but magical judges with one job to do. Though the witch had disposed of her meal in some haste, the magical judges were enjoying a taste. They nibbled on petals that were made of Swiss cheese and gobbled feta branches that swayed in the breeze. The duck gave a quack, the frog jumped up high, the mouse launched his juggling balls into the sky. Now you might have worked out, you probably see, that the three all loved cheese. What serendipity. And so it turned out the witch was most highly scored for a somewhat unintentional but tasty cheese board. The cat and the snowman made a big cup of tea, and as they felt they deserved it, took a biscuit or three. They watched as the judges ate the rest of the day and saw their whole garden get slowly eaten away. The cat was upset, the snowman did weep, and both settled down for a jolly sad sleep. I haven't got any more words to make a happy ending. Hi again, my name's Rebecca and I post new videos on Fridays. I felt so bad about leaving that story there. I wrote an extra 6 lines to steer it back to a happy ending, but I decided that no, them's the words that I was given, I have to stick to them. But just know that there's a happy ending that does exist in my head. Poor little black cat and jolly snowman. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Thanks especially if I asked for a word, by the way, because everyone that I asked gave at least one, and without you, the story would not have existed. With a few more of you, we might have got around to a happy ending, but whatever. I'll be back soon, but in the meantime, please remember to work hard, laugh harder, and always accept a hug. Bye! That wasn't good enough. There we go. Here's the happy ending if you need it. That's not the end, I wouldn't do that. Not to the snowman and little black cat. The witch cast their magic all through the night. They woke in the morning to a wonderful sight. The garden was back to its former glory and the snowman and cat had a funny new story.